What is going on, guys? My name is Sean Barnard, and today I'm here with ohbetting.com, here to give a sportsbook review, here to break down Betfred Sportsbook, the pros and cons of the overall interface and usage of the app, give a whole breakdown on the how to do the login process, the sign up process, how to deposit money, the overall pros and cons, and much more. And before I dive fully into it, I would like to recommend you guys check out ohbetting.com. There's a link directly in the description of this video. There we have a more deep dive into the breakdown, the pros and cons in written form, so you can get any more specific questions that you might have answered there, as well as a link to head directly to the website or to Betfred Sportsbook and make sure that you're capitalizing on the most lucrative promo codes that they do offer. So I will circle back and touch more on that. But for now, let's dive into things. So the first thing I'm going to do here is share my screen with you and take a look at the Betfred Sportsbook interface. Betfred Sportsbook started off in England and has kind of expanded into the American markets. They have grown into one of the bigger players. And the thing that I want to point out first off is when you go to the Betfred Sportsbook homepage, that there are a number of options that they have different states that it is legal in. We're going to click the Ohio here, and it's going to push us to want to download the app. A reason that I wanted to show you guys that is that each interface in each state does look very different, that they do make some changes. It is not the standard rollout that you kind of expect from most sports books, that it is, you know what you're getting regardless of where you are, that they do seem to personalize it from state to state. So they do push for you to download the mobile app, but we're going to ignore that and slide over to a screen so I can show you right on here on my computer with me. So this is a look at the actual sports book itself. So once you are logged in, all right, and then you are in the physical account, when you go through this part, so you're going to want to go to the top right where it says register or log in. To go to the registration process, you're going to click that register button. Here's where you would go enter your first name, last name, date of birth. Got to go through verifying your identity, payment methods, as well as the geolocation to make sure you're within the Ohio boundaries. As I mentioned, there's a couple other states where Betfred Sportsbook is legal in as well, but Ohio is obviously what we're focused on today. So then once you do that and you are loaded in, we'll head back to the home screen here, and then you're going to want to deposit money. This is one of the weakness of Bedford Sportsbook is it is not doesn't have the deepest options when it comes to what you can deposit with. They do have the basics that you can have when it comes to a bank transfer, a credit card, a debit card, things like that, but it does not step outside the box in the way that you expect the sportsbook is. The minimum deposit for Betfred Sportsbook is $10, and there is no minimum set for a wager itself. So you can go pretty small units if that is what you desire there. But it is a $10 minimum deposit for putting money in your account. And the way that you would get there on the screen is by going to your person here to your account. And then underneath promos and bonuses, there will be a section to add money. So you'd go through, and that would be the process there. So now let's take a look at the actual sportsbook itself. So you can see the interface, the blue and white design. You can see some ads and promos cycling across the top. And as I mentioned with the promo codes, that is a huge way to make sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck, maximizing your potential earnings by making sure that you have extra funds within your account that might not even have to be your own. So whether that be a deposit bonus or whatever the matter is, those are constantly rotating and something you want to keep tabs on. And the best way to do that is by going to ohbetting.com and making sure that you are staying up to date and that they are providing you the best information so you can capitalize and make your betting experience the greatest. Now, let's get into a couple more specifics of the sportsbook here. So, as you can see on the side, that there is all the different options for what you can wager on. When you're scrolling down, there's the NFL, NCAA, MLB, as soccer, WNBA, CFL, and then when you go down a little more, there's an A to Z sports section. So a little more in depth, a little bit easier to navigate baseball, basketball, boxing, football, golf, hockey, as well as some more niche sports as well. The rugby union, motor racing, mixed martial arts, things like that. So there are a ton of options there. And that, they do have some cool pop-ups like this that I think is pretty cool too. Like the just advertising the odds, for example, in this one it says New York is 9-4 in its last 13 games. The money line tonight, New York plus 110 against the Boston Red Sox. So cool little just like wager into that and a little window into what to expect here. Now let's take a look. Let's dive into the NFL and take a look at some of the options for this week upcoming. So if you want to place a wager, this is where you would go to. You would scroll down. Cincinnati Bengals facing the Baltimore Ravens, another divisional matchup. We know that the Bengals did not look sharp in week one, struggled, went down to the Browns. They are 3.5-point favorites against the Ravens. Cincinnati will be back at home in this matchup, minus 185 on the money line. The over-under set at 46.5 for this matchup. One thing to note that I think is you should keep in mind when it comes to Betfred Sportsbook is they are pretty standardized lines when it comes to the minus 110, the plus 100, minus 120. I'm actually a little bit surprised to see the spread in this particular matchup at minus 120 versus plus 100. Typically, it's minus 110 across the board. That's pretty much you can expect. And as I scroll through the rest of the games here, yeah, it looks like the Chargers versus Titans at minus 115, minus 105 is the only other game without the even minus 110 on each side. So it should be noted that those are kind of kept to uh, steer the bets a little bit to make sure they get 50-50 on both sides. So just to keep that in mind. But let's say for the sake of this example that I do expect Cincinnati to bounce back. I think the Bengals are going to have a comeback game and prove that they are still the contenders they're expected to be. So plus 100 odds, you're going to click that, and then you would type in the wager how much you want to place here. So if you want to place a $10 bet, that would be a $10 bet to win 20, and then you would simply click the place bet here. You will have to verify, go through the process, but it is simple as that. It drops into your bet slip here, and then you can capitalize through that. Another thing that I like to point out is the parlay option. So that's, of course, when you combine bets from multiple games that they all have to hit for it to cash out, but it is a chance to make more money on the particular wager. So let's scroll down, look for another game of interest to us. So we have the Bengals in our bet slip still. We're going to look down here, and let's say we want to jump into the Atlanta Falcons, that we think the Atlanta Falcons 1.5 point underdogs to the Green Bay Packers. I know the Packers won in week 1, but I think it was a fluke. In fact, I'm going to take the Falcons on the money line. So to take that plus 100 here, now we can see this jumps right up. So I can either click in each individual wager to take them straight, or it combines them in a parlay right up here. That would be plus 300 for these two games. So if I want to bet on both these together, we put in $10 there, and that would be $10 to win 40 in the potential earnings there. So it does do the work for you with the parlay, as well as there's teaser options and more in depth there. And you, of course, can add as many legs to the parlay as you want. If I want to throw, let's say, the Charge or the Titans money line in the mix here, then we're at plus 860 for those 3 games. So, of course, more risk that all 3 of those have to hit for the wager to pay out, but way more potential for earnings and a more lucrative payout. Now, it is not just the single game options that you can bet here on Betfred Sportsbook. For example, let me take a click into the Bengals versus Ravens game as I was speaking about, and let's take a look at some of the other betting options that they do provide. Because in addition to just the standardized spread, money line, and total points over under, there are a ton of game props, player props, things like that. So if we're going to go into the game prop section, first off, there's the match winner. So this would be to take out overtime. Quite the payout on this is essentially betting it to go to overtime by taking the tie, because this is a regular timing odds is what this is trying to set up there. So it will ignore that for now. Here we have both teams to points over under at 12.5. So if you're feeling a high scoring game, if you want to jump all the way to over 22.5 for both teams at plus 210. So good value there. So this is more of the scoring game props. The team totals are more specific to each team. So you can see the over under for the Bengals if at 17.5, still pretty juiced up line at minus 358 there. Not something with a ton of value here, as well as they have each of these for the Ravens as well. So example, over 24.5 for the Ravens, the line would be plus 155 for that. I'm feeling good about that. If I think the Ravens are going to have a high-powered offense, they put up 25 points in week 1 against a Texans team, which obviously is not incredibly talented, but still an example of what their offense can do. If you want to put $10 on that to win 1550, the same exact process that you simply click place bet and go about your business and get that set up there. They also are a ton of alternate lines and other options. It does not look like there are some player props available yet. It is still a little bit earlier in the week when I'm recording this video, but there are player prop options on Betfred Sportsbook. And it is not just the single game options either, as I want to take a look at some of the deeper futures that are offered as well. So let's take a scroll down here back to the NFL section, and let's go to the Super Bowl odds. So this, of course, is who I expect to win the entire league. There's already a little line movement from the Chiefs losing in week 1. They were the initial favorite heading into the NFL season, and they've dropped down to 3rd. So looking at the odds to win the Super Bowl this year, Philadelphia Eagles at plus 650 first, San Francisco 49ers at plus 650 in second, and the Kansas City Chiefs in plus 700 with the 3rd best odds there. So maybe you're buying the dip on the Chiefs that you think with plus 700 that there's good value there, or Cincinnati Bengals sitting right there in 6th place. So let's jump on that. So if I'm going to click that wager there, jump on that, and it is the same process to place a wager. So this, if I'm going to type in $10, so it'd be 10 to win 140 in potential returns. And that, of course, gives you a little more skin in the game. You're able to watch it throughout the course of the entire season, not just a 1 week, one and done. And it is a fun wager to play with. So if you do believe in the Bengals that this could be the year they break through in the playoff time, that's an awesome option there. And it doesn't have to be as specific as the Super Bowl, of course. If you want to go to the make playoffs lines, each team has their own odds there. So you're going to scroll down. We'll take a look and jump on a team for an example here. You can see each of them lined up. Let's look at the Cleveland Browns here. So the Browns, a little bit up in the air. They did look pretty solid in week one. They're minus 155 to make the playoffs, plus 125 to miss them. So pretty even odds there. Let's say you're really feeling good about this, or maybe I don't think the Browns are going to lose it. I just feel like the Cleveland Browns are who they are, that they're going to find a way to mess it up, and I'm feeling really confident. So I'm going to throw $20 in the wager, and to place that, you would just put the place bet just like any others there. So 20 to win, 45 on the potential payout, plus 125 odds. And it's the same process there, a futures bet, which you can watch throughout the length of the entire season. And this is also not just team specific, that if you want to jump into the NFL awards, they have things like the Offensive Player of the Year, regular season MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, Coach of the Year. The options go on, as well as stat leaders. These are very fun to play with, and something that you can get a ton of value in as well. The regular season's passing touchdowns leader, the rushing touchdowns leader, the receiving yards leader, all these options, whatever you're really looking for, you can scroll through. So there is a pretty extensive market for the player props and futures on Betfred Sportsbook. And it is not just football that we are talking about here. If you want to scroll down, we can jump into the college betting lines and take a look at the expectations there. And the same exact process that they have specific game only. There's a little bit more limits to what you can do for college betting due to their amateur status, but there still is the basis. And you can jump into the futures as well if you want to jump into the college football futures market. And same exact process that you can jump in, watch that throughout the length of the season. If you're thinking Georgia are the clear favorites to win the championship this year, but a number of other options. Texas has looked sharp. Michigan has all the pieces. Ohio State. I really like Florida State this year. Let's talk about Ohio State, though. At plus 1,000 odds. If that's your team, you think they have a real high chance, let's jump in. We'll put 20 there. That would be 20 to win 220 in a potential return. And you do click the payout button there in the same exact process. So as I mentioned, there is just about everything you need. They do offer live betting when you go to the in-play button there. And the Betfred boosts are something to keep in mind. They're the constantly rotating options when it comes to the available wagers on the sportsbook and coming with bonuses, things like that are constantly rotating. So live betting is obviously a huge plus as well. And just to go over some of the overall pros and cons to wrap this up here. Number one, I'm going to give the overall stamp of approval on Betfred Sportsbook that I do think it is pretty much has the basics for what every sports book and sports or what every sports fan should expect from a sports book. It is not doesn't have the bells and whistles that one might hope for the top of the line. I'm going to give it slightly below the max for that. I do think the interface for the most part functions very well. I don't love the look of it. I don't think it's the cleanest in comparison to some of its competitors, but it does function pretty well. It's easy to navigate. You can find what you need. The payment options is probably the biggest weakness that I would say. As I mentioned, they have the basics that you can do a bank transfer, can deposit directly from a credit or debit card, which is probably the ways that most people are going to use it anyway. But when you compare to others, when there's options such as Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, things like that, do make life easier. The bottom line is at least there's one way to make sure that you can get your money into the account. That's all that matters, but it does make it a little more inconvenient at times. The customer support also has had some issues. They missed the mark with their accessibility. The live chat windows availability are limited compared to some of the other leading operators in the market, and it's just not the quickest response time that one would hope. This is in an ideal world that you don't need to get in touch with customer service and things function fine. But unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. And at one point or another, you likely will need to have a question answered or a fix on your account or something along those lines. So can be a little frustrating there. I do think the variety and the features on the app are pretty solid. That I do think that they have all the options people are looking for, especially the prop bet market. They are not lacking compared to their competitors. That's a big deal and something that people are constantly looking out for. So make sure to capitalize there. And the welcome bonus, I do think it is a pretty positive welcome bonus. As I mentioned, it's clearly rotating, and should check out ohbetting.com to make sure that you're staying up to date and getting the best value. But they do offer some pretty lucrative payouts to make sure that you're getting going right off the bat. So overall, I would recommend Betfred Sportsbook. I wouldn't say it's the top of the line compared to the contenders in the industry, but still a solid sportsbook that gets the job done and can give you a very positive betting experience nonetheless. So appreciate you guys for tuning in. Once again, make sure to check out ohbetting.com for more in-depth breakdown and written content on Betfred Sportsbook, as well as make sure it'll link you right to the website itself, and you can capitalize on the best possible bonus bet. So thank you guys for watching this video, and we'll talk next time. Peace.